Well, we all saw it on Sunday, New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. It's orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. We saw Jarrett Stidham, and he ran what Sean Payton wanted him to do, Mace. He just didn't run it very good.
Yeah, it was fine. I mean, he stayed to his marks. He got into a rhythm. We saw the Broncos use parts of the field in the passing game that have been neglected or ignored over the last 15 games prior to Sunday. But on balance, it was just okay. I mean, I think ESPN's QBR gave him a number of 31.3 for the game. Um, I thought maybe that was a little bit low, but it was if it was golf, it would be just a very unremarkable par, right?
Right, right. And
Nothing
that's
special.
where I think, Mace, a lot of fans are looking at the box score and saying, he did what Russell Wilson did. Actually, no. If you go beyond the box score, you can see how he did. He was asked to do more. He did more, mainly in breaking routes,
Hmm.
crossers, and yes, even some slants.
I
So
know
I
the
fans
slant to
were
Brandon
fooled, though.
Johnson. The slant to
Exactly.
Brandon Johnson right near the goal line when they were trying to get out of those two false starts. I'm like, oh wow! So that's what
That's what it
Brandon
looks like.
Johnson looks like running a slant. That slant. That's not bad. I'll
Right.
take it. Yeah.
Right. So I think fans are misguided when they say it's just like Russell Wilson. No, it wasn't.
Mm-mm.
Statistically, yes. Schematically, no.
Yeah. He took a different path to the same endpoint. Like it was, instead of the offense bogging down at various points of the field, a bunch of three and outs. Like yesterday, there were no three and outs. Part of that was because you had the crossing routes, the slants, the things that allow you in the Sean Payton offense to keep yourself on schedule and in rhythm. And that's why you looked up at the end of the game, and the only possession the Broncos had without a first down was the kneel down at the end. So what you had was an offense that didn't have those extreme negatives in terms of drive flow, but they didn't sustain anything. And we can kind of parse through the reasons. Stidham and Jeudy, their timing was off. Jeudy had a couple of passes to him in the hands, but Stidham needs to lead Jerry Jeudy, and he's throwing behind Jerry Jeudy. So the timing wasn't quite right there. They basically took a different path to a very similar result, and I think it reveals that you know there's some fundamental things for the offense that need to be fixed going into the offseason. Although I will say this, I thought Sean Payton said something. Said some interesting things. Um,
Last night or
this
this
morning,
morning.
both. I mean,
Okay.
I think both. But he said at one point toward the end, quote, that was a long stretch of 15 weeks where we'd seen a very similar pattern, unquote. Um, I think, to quote Sam White 30 years ago when he was mic'd up on the sideline and he said, give me somebody fresh even if they're bad. I think Sean Payton just wanted to see how it would look with someone different at the controls, even if the scoreboard result and the overall yardage results were not that dissimilar. I mean, the yardage was a bit higher than the average over the last couple of months, both passing yardage, total yardage. But on balance, the end result was fairly familiar, even if you took a different path to get there. And oh, by the way, there were a couple of passes that could have been intercepted as well. So when Sean Payton talks about he said we were safe with the football. Well, in much the same way that you nearly had two interceptions last week off Russell Wilson, you nearly had two interceptions thrown by Jarrett Stidham yesterday too.
Yeah, and it's one thing, Mace. I don't know if you'll go back and watch the TV copy. I only watched the TV copy once when it's live.
Mm.
You're at the stadium, I'm at home. But even the announcers, who you and I both know, are told a lot of things during the week as they
Oh,
prepare to call the game. When they were
that
doing the
production meeting
crossers,
Saturday was wild, I think.
when they were doing the crossers, even the announcers, I alerted listeners last night on the postgame show. It's like, the announcer's like, you didn't see this with Russell Wilson when they were doing crossers and in breaking routes. Like, that says a lot. I think what Sean Payton is being as professional as he can be in making these comments.
Yeah, and the broadcast crew specifically was interesting. On the sideline, you had Tiffany Blackman. In the booth, you had Tom McCarthy, longtime voice of the Philadelphia Phillies, joined by James Lofton and Jay Feely. So James Lofton, of course, when they're talking about those crossers and the mechanics of the passing game, that's right up his alley. He's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He gets that, and one of the reasons why he's been a broadcaster for so long is he knows how to explain those concepts. Jay Feely, a former kicker, he brought kind of an interesting role because he actually at one point went in on George Payton.
Yes.
Which was interesting. He actually was alluding a great deal to the nature of Sean Payton and Russell Wilson coming together, and he called it an arranged marriage that basically didn't work. It was actually a really fascinating crew to have call this particular game. Also because way back in week 1, they called that game against the Raiders. So they had a very interesting kind of compare and contrast in what they saw then and prepared for versus what they saw on New Year's Eve.
Right. Now, Sean Payton, we got a couple of clips about his thoughts on Jarrett Stidham, but you were around the fellas in the locker room, Adam Troutman, others, really have a different opinion on Stidham's performance than some fans out there, who were outraged that it looked just like Russell Wilson. Well, it didn't, and teammates and his coach didn't think so either.
Yeah, and both Adam Troutman and Lloyd Cushenberry, I know we have the Troutman clip, talked about how composed Jarrett Stidham was. And part of that may be relative to your expectation that he's only started 2 games. It's his first start this year. What's it going to be like with him in the huddle? So when he has a placid demeanor, when he also appeared to have no trouble getting the calls out in the huddle, there were only a couple of moments where there was timing issues, and they seemed rushed. But it looked like. But watching that, I know one of them in particular. There was some confusion on the sideline as I was watching it from the press box. That appeared to be a procedural delay, forcing them to get the snap off right there, about 1 second. That appeared to be a procedural delay coming from the bench area, not from Jarrett Stidham in the huddle, right? So
Right.
That was interesting to note, I thought.
Well, here's Adam Troutman talking about Jarrett Stidham's first start.
Well, I thought he had great control of the huddle and offense, and getting everything lined up, getting everything going, all the checks, all the kills on the plays. And yeah, he's just got like this confidence about him, which is like when he comes in the huddle, it's pretty awesome.
Pretty awesome. Interesting.
Wow. And, he does it in kind of a steady way, Mace. And watching Jarrett Stidham's mannerisms, this isn't a rah-rah guy, which is fine if you're that guy. This is a guy who's just like expects to do it, expects to play at a high level. That's where that comfort and that confidence comes from.
Yeah, and I think very much kind of staying on schedule and sticking to his marks, and that's where it would be interesting to see what things look like when it's off schedule, off rhythm. We didn't see much of that. We did see a couple of times when protection broke down where it looked awkward. There was the one sack, of course, where Khalil Mack bull rushed Ben Powers and effectively, if you had the butt fumble, that was a butt sack, right?
Right.
Stidham runs into Ben Powers' butt as he's being pushed back by Khalil Mack, and that leads to the sack. There were. We'll get more into this probably on Tuesday, but it'll be interesting to see like how they perceive this in terms of where they think Jarrett Stidham can go. Because as I'm watching it, and I started rewatching it late last night as well, what I see is a potential very good, solid backup. But I'm not sure how Broncos country is going to feel if Jarrett Stidham is the week 1 starter. We'll see what happens in Las Vegas on Sundays. Maybe you get Courtland Sutton back. I don't expect to get Marvin Mims Jr. back because he's dealing with a hamstring, although I imagine they'll try to keep that open and see. But I would expect we'll see Courtland Sutton back in the lineup this week. And does that change things a little bit? Because you want to have, I think you want to have some grace and kind of view things in the proper perspective.
Right.
You went up against the Chargers team that just they're planning for Cancun. They don't have Joey Bosa, but they still had Khalil Mack, who caused some problems, obviously, to which I alluded, and they still had Derwin James out there. So it didn't have Kenneth Murray, but it wasn't a Chargers defense that was devoid of talent that was out there on Sunday by any means. And the Broncos did not have Courtland Sutton. So I am curious to see how next week looks if the Broncos are a little bit closer to full strength on offense. But what I saw on Sunday looks like Jarrett Stidham has a chance to be around here as a long-term backup, because we know Sean Payton likes security in his backup quarterback.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, So with people losing their mind because Jarrett Stidham wasn't amazing, I'm like, well, he's not amazing. And when people lose their mind because he doesn't have chemistry with Jerry Jeudy, I'm like, how is he supposed to have chemistry? He just showed up, basically. Yeah. He's just starting now. And you mentioned the return of Courtland Sutton for 1 week. Mace, wouldn't it be nice to see Sutton do his Michael Thomas impression? Because now you have a quarterback that can throw those slants.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they try to do that, because with Courtland Sutton, it's been mostly 9-ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens if you add a couple of branches to that route tree of his. He's shown in the past he can handle it. Just because things were simplified out of necessity and playing to the strength that also meshed with the strength of the quarterback, which is another thing. Like, people are like, oh, Sean Payton didn't do the things that would help Russell Wilson. I mean, no, actually he did, because that offense run over the course of the year wasn't a traditional Sean Payton offense. It was adapted to Russell Wilson. But I do wonder, and Payton's kind of alluded to this, but I think as long as they weren't turning the ball over, he could live with it. But then you got 3 picks against Houston. You had a pick against the Chargers. You had a fumble, very nearly a scoop and score. If a Fleeter player had come up with a football, it might have been a scoop and score against the Lions, and 2 near picks against the Patriots. I think it just sort of hit a point where it's like, okay, now we're getting turnovers and near turnovers from the quarterback position. I got to see something else. And again, you had a couple of near picks on Sunday with Jarrett Stidham, but he's running the offense that Sean Payton wanted to run. So that's where it's a little bit different, I think, in terms of perception.
It's probably a little bit happier. They got to win, and the yardage, whatever, accuracy, whatever. But he's happier because he can run what he wants to do. Now we have 2 Payton clips, one from last night at his press conference, and then one from the conference call this morning that you were very graciously a part of. Mace, do you want to play either one of those as we discuss Stidham?
Let's start with what he said last night at the podium at Empower Field at Mile High. Let's start with that.
Okay, here we go.
First half. Thought he was good. I thought he was collected, calm. I thought he played with real good poise. You felt experience relative to a guy who hadn't had as many, minutes maybe as some others, but you certainly didn't feel that during the course of the game. I thought he was efficient in and out of the huddle. I thought he made some good throws for us overall until I see the tape, but I thought it went pretty good.
All right. So I said until I see the tape. Now let's fast forward to what he said after seeing the tape when he met with Denver area media this morning.
I thought Jared did a good job after seeing the tape with his decisions, the ball security, all those things that you want to see from that position. The big play to LJ was a heck of a play by LJ. Protection was good. So a lot of positives to build off of.
Sounds like a guy that is pretty happy here on a Monday, Mace.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, Sean Payton.
Happy New Year, Sean Payton. You got a glimpse of what it might look like. Although again, you're not happy with the points, and later on he alluded to red zone's got to be better, and I can hear people who are defending Russell Wilson will say, well, hey, Russell Wilson was doing well in the red zone. Yeah. I don't know. If we were talking about what we like the best tactic, maybe is it Jarrett Stidham between the 20s and Russell Wilson in the red zone? I mean, Russ comes in like a relief picture at the end of the drive to finish things off.
Hey, the Panthers are doing that with Andy Dalton, with Bryce Young. We've seen other teams do that with their quarterbacks. So we've seen Sean Payton do it with Taysom Hill.
At the same time, yes. At the same time, we're having a different discussion about the red zone if you don't have back-to-back false starts there in the fourth quarter, right? I mean, that was really that was very frustrating for the Broncos to have those. So, how much of it is on Jarrett Stidham? How much of it is on others? How much of it is on the play calling? Because you remember they got back to 3rd and goal. Right after the aforementioned slant route to Brandon Johnson, you didn't quite get in the end zone, but you were back there at the 1 yard line. You had repaired the damage, and then Javonte Williams, who it was a weird day for Javonte because we've seen it now the last few weeks. He's starting to have those flashes again, where you see this is the way it's supposed to look. Like he had there when he bounced to the right side, broke a couple of tackles there. I believe it was in the first quarter.
Yes.
And you saw that play and was like, and your heart skips a beat a little bit because that's old Javonte. Like that's the dude that we saw 2 years ago who was on Kyle Brandt's angry runs every week that Broncos country was falling in love with, and how things changed pretty fast because Broncos country fell in love with him 2 years ago. And then last week after that game, the vitriol out there was harsh, right? Not a lot of Christmas spirit among some Broncos fans when it came to Javonte Williams. Well, you see that run, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's the glimpse, there's the gleam, as Marty Schottenheimer would have said. And then at other runs, you're seeing he can't escape. He's slow to get to the hole. He's being met in the backfield. On plays where most running backs are going to get away from that kind of contact, because even if a run play is blocked properly, you're gonna have a free dude or two in there, right?
Right.
And it's incumbent upon the running back to get away, and Javonte Williams didn't get away. So that's part of it. It's disappointing, and also probably part of the reason why we saw more of Jaleel McLaughlin in terms of getting the ball than we have. And by the way, we'll get into more of that later. But Jaleel McLaughlin had himself a good day. We'll talk more about that.
Elsewhere. That's coming up. Jarrett Stidham, people wonder where's the spark, Mace. It might actually be a reverse of last year, where it was the 49ers game, he looked good, and then the Chiefs game, he looked bad. This year, that spark might be coming. So people ask, where's the spark you guys promised? Well, we're fixing to find out. Maybe, just maybe, against the Raiders in Vegas, the lights shine bright for Jarrett Stidham.
I thought there was a spark early yesterday, and I think the spark could have been an outright flame if one of those early passes to Jerry Jeudy had connected, right? He had the one that was a little bit behind them that was a drop, and he had the other where it was toward the sideline, and Jeudy couldn't quite get to it. If you get one of those, I think you're talking about something really substantial early. Then the other thing, and again, it's endemic of how there are greater things in play that need to be fixed for this Broncos offense. It was the start of the third quarter. Got a first down, and then it bogged down and punted. If not for the defensive pass interference call that sets you up in 1st and goal, you're not coming close to a touchdown on that series. And then, of course, you had the false start. So that there are still things that are clunky beyond the quarterback. And I think this game served as a reminder of that you're maybe not gonna fix everything here, and you got a ways to go with avoiding some of the timing issues. What I think we can probably also say for Jarrett Stidham, and it's very similar to Russell Wilson, you don't have a quarterback who necessarily can elevate everyone around him, right?
But he's not
I
making
think-
50 million a year.
Right, but honestly, this is part of it. You had a pretty comparable performance in the end sum from a quarterback who cost you a fraction of the other guy. I actually think in some ways it reflects more poorly on Russell Wilson and more justifies the decision to make the change because, okay, you didn't do appreciably better, but you didn't really do worse, right? It looked about the same. Which probably tells you, all right, you got to go shopping for a quarterback here in the off season.
Yep.
Probably in the draft.
Probably going to have to move up.
Yeah, I know I'm sure we'll talk more about the tackle class this year, for example.
Yes.
I don't think we're talking tackles, at least not early. It's a good edge rusher class. Don't think we're talking about edge rusher early. In fact, a genuine sense I got coming out of this game, in particular the way Cooper and Benito played, genuine sense I got is that next year you're maybe looking at Browning, Cooper, Benito, and kind of figuring out who your two are going to be long term. I mean, Jonathan Cooper, knock on wood, might hit double-digit sacks. In the end sum, he's going to have a very good year. And for somebody who's more of a set the edge guy, having that kind of sack total in his pass rush numbers, it's a nice little bonus going forward. And I think that's a position where Broncos country may have to accept, okay, probably status quo here if they're going to have to go get a quarterback. It's a shame. Some good edges, some good tackles. But this is looking more and more like the QB.
Yep. And we'll be breaking it down for you all off season right here, denversports.com. It is orange and blue today. Hey, make sure to do the YouTube things because we might have secret shows for you that are only on YouTube. So like you want to help us out and grow the YouTube channel, then like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And we're bringing you bonus episodes, man. Like we're supposed to be off today. We're like, no, sorry.
There's too much to say. How can you really take the day after a game off, especially a game that again, we got more to come because
Yes,
there's a lot of talking points here. We kind of just we tiptoed into them.
Yeah,
but there's more to break down from this game. A lot more.
Yep. And we will have more for you right here. He's Andrew Mason. Follow him on socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?